I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about why you should not care about the NFL Top 100 rankings from NFL Network. And let's be completely honest, this is a spotlight because it's the offseason. Like, we have literally nothing else to talk about. Free agency was back in March. The draft has already happened. We've been through OTAs, and yeah, you could make the argument that preseason's in 2 to 3 weeks, and there's training camp going on right now, so it's fun to talk about the storylines. It's fun to talk about the what the beat writers are saying about various position battles. It's fun to think about who that stud running back who you're going to pick up on your fantasy football team and who's going to help you win a championship. It's fun to think about all that. But ultimately, it's the offseason, and that's why we are starved for content at this time of year. And that's why this list does come out at this time of year, because that's the only real time where you can have eyes on it and realistically people will A, pay attention, and B, excited about. But here's another thing. Before I proceed any further, I just want to show you a ballot about what this looks like. So, this is, I don't know how they weigh. Like, this guy had Patrick Mahomes at number one. And the fact that this guy completely left Christian McCaffrey off his list is absolutely ludicrous. But regardless, so this is what a ballot does look like. So, once again, you're not ranking 100 players, you're just voting for 20 of them. And that makes sense. But most football fans I know rarely watch NFL Network. NFL Network is something that, for me, my connection to it was when I was working in a restaurant, I would just throw it on the TV because, it's something to have on in the background. And I don't really watch NFL Network. I don't know anybody who actually watches it. I used to put on Good Morning Football just as like background noise. But once again, this is something that I don't think people actually get their content from anymore. And this is just kind of along the way that sports media is trending. People don't really watch ESPN anymore. People don't really watch those network TVs anymore. I used to watch NHL Network quite a bit when I was like 14, 15, but that was the extent of it. And yeah. But another thing I need to talk about is I don't think players even take it that seriously, because you're probably just like, oh, cool, 20 guys, vote for 20 guys. Yeah, cool. And when the list gets published, they're probably not comparing and being like, dang, why is that guy ranked at 90? Why is this guy ranked at 45? This guy is better than, whatever. They understand. They understand. They have bigger fish to fry. But one thing I do have to mention is that players cannot rank other players very well. And once again, I'm just going to show you, this ballot all over again. But here's why players are bad at evals. Joe Burrow had said that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the best athlete on the 2019 LSU team. Notice he didn't say best player, he said best athlete, but both are wrong by a long shot. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for as good as he was expected to be in the NFL, was still an undersized running back who only ran 4.6. He was still only 5'7", 205. And yes, that is impressive athleticism, but at the same time, Justin Jefferson was very athletic. Same with Jamar Chase, and those guys were more like size, speed, athletic. But Joe Burrow, I think he was just trying to gas up his boy or whatever. But again, that's not something that you can seriously say. And I don't know. This was before Clyde Edwards-Helaire even got drafted to the NFL, so nothing about him after he went round one. Nothing about him after he went ahead of Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers in that draft. But another thing I want to point out is that DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown said that Elijah Moore at Ole Miss was better than they were. They swore on it. And another one is that Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave swore that Jackson Smith and Jigba at Ohio State was better than they are. And again, this is something that you just got to throw out there that, players, yeah, they could be trying to pump up their guys to media, but at the same time, they don't really know how to rank each other in accordance to each other, just because you can't feasibly expect players who just play the game. Their job is literally to go out there and play the game. Our job as fans is to root for it, and the job of some other people is to create stuff that gets people talking. And obviously, the NFL 100 gets people talking about stuff. But another problem that we'll get into on the next slide is that you can't really rank position by position. Like, how am I going to compare two wide receivers when one of them plays with Patrick Mahomes and the other one plays with Daniel Jones? You just don't know. And that's one of the other problems with these lists. But Tyreek Hill also had Tua and Baker ranked as his top 5 quarterbacks. CJ Stroud had Dak Prescott in his top 5, which based on last year is not that crazy, but still, he omitted Josh Allen and Justin Herbert from that list, so that is pretty crazy. But I don't know. The top 100 list they come up with every year ends up being pretty bad. So, yeah, once again, I just don't take any stock into, player A said that player B is better than they were, and they were college teammates, so player B is better. Yeah, I just don't put any stock in that, and I'm definitely not going to put any stock in that when you have a list that a bunch of players are voting on as well. So once again, like I alluded to in the previous slide, it's impossible to compare other positions. How am I expected to know how good Derrick Henry is at running back compared to Sauce Gardner at corner? How am I expected to know how good George Kittle is at tight end compared to Minka Fitzpatrick at safety? You just don't know. These guys aren't playing the same position, and on defense in particular, especially box score stats, it doesn't always correlate to actually playing your position. So that's one of the problems with these lists is that feasibly, like, you can't account for situation, you can't account for guys that are next to you. The only thing you have to go off of that is athleticism, and even then, being athletic in the NFL doesn't mean automatically that you know how to play your position. In fact, a lot of players who are really athletic end up just fizzling out. But another thing is that players don't rank 100 players. I think it'd be pretty ridiculous for them to do so. They just vote for 20 of them, and they don't really have a published uh, methodology on how they rank it as far as NFL Network. They don't have like, here's how we do number one as opposed to number two, and how we like throw them in our list and how we get the aggregated ranking. Like, we don't know publicly, and it's pretty unclear that if it's the best players from last year or this upcoming year. Because I remember in 2012 when I was watching NFL Network in one summer, it was the top 100 players from 2011, and then other people are saying it's the top 100 going into the next year. So how do you do this? Is the thing that's being published on Twitter and Instagram right now, is it the best 100 players from 2023 or 2020, or is it going to be the best players in 2024? Yeah, I don't know. And I think with players voting, I think they're pretty aware that players are biased towards voting for their friends and own teammates. And honestly, I don't expect every NFL player to vote on these lists. So if you have a team that, everybody votes, uh, maybe more of those guys are going to appear on the list. Meanwhile, let's say, who's a stacked team? Let's say two guys on the 49ers vote and 40 guys on the Giants vote. You're going to have a relatively underrepresented, number of 49ers on the list because, once again, players take it with a grain of salt. So here's more about NFL Network. Again, it's just something that we can have fun with and we can post about on their social media and get people talking, and it definitely gets some reactions, and most of them are pretty negative. But another thing about the list is that there's no real criteria for weighing injuries, especially because Aaron Rodgers was at 96 and Kirk Cousins was at 81. So Cousins did play well last year. He did play well before he snapped his Achilles, but Aaron Rodgers had the same injury that he did, and he only played 4 snaps before he was ruled out for the year. And once again, I just don't really know how they have a criteria for weighing injuries if they're like, okay, you can only vote on a guy if they played X amount of games. And once again, it's a popularity contest. Lots of players on it had very poor seasons. Like, for example, I saw Derwin James at 82, and I'm like, he wasn't that good last year, especially because he's been relatively banged up. Like, I know that still what he can be, and they're not invalid. Like 82, it's not ludicrous for putting Derwin James there, but players, they really can't keep up with the NFL like fans can. But another thing is that Justin Fields made the NFL top 100 last year, and we just saw how that turned out. And yeah, I don't know. Obviously, guys get better and guys get worse year over year, but players, like looking at some of these past lists, I just have not liked um, what players have voted on. And here's why it doesn't matter. So we have nothing else to talk about this time of year, and that's basically the whole point of this video. The whole point of this video is, tune into something else. Don't pay attention to the NFL Top 100, because the more attention you give something that's horrible, the more it's going to receive, and the more, that's pretty much the point. It's to get people talking. And once again, I think my calculation was correct in 1,600 active NFL players who are on a 53-man roster. Yeah, that makes sense because 50 times 32 is 1,600. So this is probably 1,696 players Some quick math in my head, I think. But they feasibly can't outrank millions of fans. All these players, they have jobs to attend to. The NFL's a job, and the NFL takes quite a bit of time during the season. So, besides their own division or even conference, I really don't think they are paying attention mainly to what's going on in the NFC. I'm sure guys like keep up with it and everything, but they can't be like fans who, for as much free time as they have compared to an average NFL player, they're just like, all right, this guy's better. Like, I guarantee you, a smart football fan would be able to outrank NFL players pretty easily. But once again, Rodgers made the list after 4 snaps. And again, that's not me saying he should be higher or lower. That's me just saying that you should take this list with a grain of salt. And ultimately, it's just content for the casual viewer. It's just content that people can throw on in their bar, in their restaurant, and you can have it playing in the background. And yeah, who watches NFL Network anymore? Like, I don't know. And again, I talked about this in regards to how the sports landscape is changing. So yeah, that basically does it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Let me know what you guys think about the NFL Top 100, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.